Ambassador Elena Santos had memorized every crack in the crystalline podium during her 3 hours of standing. The Galactic Council's chamber stretched above her in sweeping arcs of transparent metal and quantum crystalline matrices, designed to make lesser species feel small. Today, it was doing its job perfectly. The human delegation's request for full trading rights is, quite frankly, amusing. Councillor Zextal's voice carried through the chamber, his iridescent scales shifting from deep blue to emerald as he spoke. They barely managed to achieve faster-than-light travel a century ago. Their ships still use ionic propulsion, for Star's sake. Scattered laughter echoed through the chamber. Elena kept her expression neutral, even as her fingers tightened on the podium. The quantum crystal surface was cool against her palms, a stark contrast to the heat rising in her cheeks. She counted breaths, just as her diplomatic training had taught her. In the observers' gallery, representatives from 50 spacefaring races watched with varying degrees of amusement and pity. The Artaxians, with their crystalline bodies, vibrated in what their species considered laughter. The gaseous Nemturi swirled in their containment spheres, their patterns indicating what Elena had learned to recognize as smug superiority. Furthermore, Zextal continued, his neck frills extending in what humans had learned was a sign of extreme condescension. Their proposal suggests they could offer technological innovations to the council races. Innovations from a species that still uses chemical rockets for planetary landing. More laughter. Elena glanced at her datapad, disguised as a primitive tablet computer. The quantum processor hidden within it was already analyzing Zextal's speech patterns, mapping the subtle changes in his scale coloration. Every piece of data fed directly to humanity's hidden intelligence network. The Council recognizes Ambassador Santos. The speaker announced, their multifaceted eyes gleaming. You may respond to Councillor Zextal's concerns. Elena stepped forward, allowing a slight tremor in her voice, carefully calculated to reinforce their assumptions. Honorable Council, while it's true that our technology may seem basic by your standards, humanity has always valued innovation over mere advancement. We believe that by combining technologies in new ways. Combining technologies? Zextal interrupted, his scales flashing brilliant gold in amusement. Like your attempt to merge quantum computing with silicon processors. An embarrassment that every first-year science initiate knows is impossible. The chamber erupted in laughter again. Elena fought back a smile. If they only knew that the failed experiment had been a carefully staged public test, while the real quantum silicon hybrid processors were already operating in bases throughout the solar system. We simply ask for the opportunity to prove our worth. Elena continued, letting her voice waver slightly. Earth has much to offer. Earth has much to learn about its place in the galaxy. Zextal cut in. The Council has made its decision. Your species will be granted Category 7 trading rights, appropriate for your development level. You may conduct basic commerce through authorized intermediaries, under supervision. Perhaps in another century, we'll review your status. Category 7, exactly what their models had predicted. Elena bowed her head, a gesture of submission that hid the fierce gleam in her eyes. We accept the Council's wisdom. As she gathered her primitive datapad and prepared to leave the chamber, Elena's quantum neural implant, undetectable to even the most advanced Council scanners, sent a brief message to Earth Command. Phase 1 complete. They suspect nothing. Zextal's final words followed her out of the chamber. Let this be a lesson in humility for our young friends from Earth. The galaxy has an order to it, and knowing one's place in that order is the beginning of true wisdom. Elena allowed herself a small smile as the chamber doors closed behind her. Yes, the galaxy did have an order to it, and humanity was about to rewrite every line. Dr. James Chen watched his breath crystallize in the frigid air of Neptune's Triton base, even though the environmental systems were functioning perfectly. The cold wasn't from equipment failure, it was intentional. The quantum processors that powered humanity's greatest secret worked better at near absolute zero temperatures. Status report on Phoenix-class vessels. He spoke into the recycled air, his words creating tiny ice clouds. The AI responded in a voice carefully calibrated to sound slightly mechanical, another piece of humanity's elaborate deception. Hull quantum crystalline matrix integration at 99.97% efficiency. Bioneural interface networks operating within expected parameters. Stealth systems exceeding original specifications. James smiled as he walked through the holographic display of the fleet. To any council sensors, this massive cavern within Triton would appear to be nothing but ice and rock. The quantum-folded space within held thousands of ships, each one representing decades of carefully orchestrated technological development. Incoming transmission from Sol, the AI announced. Ambassador Santos' report from the council session. His sister's image appeared in the air before him, her diplomatic facade replaced by a fierce grin. They bought it, James. Hook, line, and sinker, as Dad used to say. Category 7 trading rights, just as we predicted. And Zextal. Perfectly arrogant. His biorhythm readings matched our psychological profile exactly. He'll never see it coming. Elena's image flickered slightly, a deliberate imperfection in what was actually a perfect quantum entangled transmission. How's our fleet? James gestured, and the holographic display expanded to show a massive dreadnought taking shape in the void. Its hull seemed to shift between states of matter, the quantum crystalline matrix adapting and learning even as it was being constructed. The Humanity's Dawn will be ready for launch in 6 hours. The entire fleet is just waiting for final neural interface calibration. Neural interface? Elena raised an eyebrow. I thought we were still pretending to struggle with basic AI integration. That's what makes it beautiful, James replied, running his hand through a holographic representation of the ship's nervous system. While they laughed at our primitive attempts to merge silicon and quantum computing, we perfected the merger of human consciousness with quantum AI. Each ship doesn't just have a crew, it has a soul. He approached one of the actual ships, its surface rippling like liquid metal in the dim light. The hull was an impossibility according to council physics, a perfect fusion of organic and inorganic materials, capable of adapting to any situation. Humanity had achieved it by throwing away the assumption that different scientific disciplines needed to remain separate. Time to completion for the entire fleet? Elena asked. 4 days, James replied, checking the quantum readouts embedded in his visual cortex. We're actually ahead of schedule. Turns out the crew integration is working better than expected. The ships, they're learning faster than we predicted. A soft chime interrupted them as another hologram appeared. Admiral Sarah Chen, their cousin, commanding the test fleet in the Kuiper Belt. James, Elena. You need to see this. The space around them transformed into a real-time view of a test ship executing maneuvers that should have torn it apart. The vessel phased between normal space and quantum states, its human crew and AI working in perfect harmony to achieve the impossible. Beautiful, isn't it? Sarah's voice was filled with pride. The council thinks we're centuries behind them because we still use chemical rockets. They never considered that we might have mastered something better. James nodded, watching the test data scroll past. The greatest trap is the one your enemy thinks is beneath their notice. While they were watching our rockets, they missed our quantum leap. Speaking of traps, Elena added, the Arcturian Empire is already preparing their protection fleet. Right on schedule. Let them come. Sarah's hologram smiled. Humanity has spent centuries being underestimated. It's time to show the galaxy why Earth's predators don't need to bare their teeth to be deadly. James turned back to the fleet, watching as the final preparations continued in perfect silence. In the void of Triton's quantum-folded space, humanity's vengeance took shape, not with the roar of engines or the clash of weapons, but with the quiet precision of a spider weaving its web. The galaxy thought they were teaching humanity its place. They were about to learn that humanity had chosen its place long ago. right at the top. High Commander Vexthorin of the Arcturian Protection Fleet watched Earth's solar system grow larger on his command deck's quantum display. His scales rippled with anticipation, shifting to the deep purple of satisfaction. Bringing order to primitive species was his favorite duty, especially species that didn't know their place. "Status report," he commanded, his neck frills extending with authority. "Protection Fleet in optimal formation. High Commander," his second responded. 37 capital ships, 112 escorts. Standard intimidation pattern. Our sensors detect only scattered human vessels, all using primitive ionic drives. No significant defensive capabilities detected. Vexthorin allowed himself a small gesture of amusement. The humans hadn't even attempted to hide their mining operations in the asteroid belt. Primitive vessels moved between rocks with the clumsy grace of larvae learning to walk. "Begin broadcast of protection declaration," he ordered. "Standard protocol for Category 7 species." The message began transmitting in multiple frequencies. Another show of Arcturian superiority. They even included translation in humanity's crude binary computer language, a patronizing touch that Vexthorin particularly enjoyed. That's when the first anomaly appeared. "High Commander," his sensor officer's scales shifted to the green of confusion. "Our engines are showing a 12% power reduction. Compensate." Unable to comply, power reduction now at 27%. Spreading through the fleet. 35%. 42. Vexthorin's scales involuntarily flashed white with alarm as his mighty fleet began to drift. Around him, the quantum displays flickered and died, replaced by simple holographic backups. Even those seemed to be fighting against some invisible force. "Full power to engines," he commanded. "Emergency protocols." No response. "High Commander, power systems are." "It's impossible. They're not damaged. They're being rewritten." The sensor officer never finished his sentence. In the space around the Arcturian fleet, reality itself seemed to tear open. Thousands of quantum ruptures appeared simultaneously, forming a perfect geometric pattern that encompassed the entire fleet. From each rupture emerged a ship unlike anything Vexthorin had ever seen. Their hulls rippled like living mercury, somehow both solid and fluid. No two ships seemed exactly alike, yet they moved with perfect coordination. The formation they took was unlike any military doctrine Vexthorin had studied in his 2 centuries of service. It looked almost organic, like a 3-dimensional spider's web. "Impossible," he whispered. "Their technology. They couldn't have." "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Fleet." A calm human voice echoed through every system on his ship, even ones that shouldn't have been capable of receiving transmissions. "Your protection is neither requested nor required. You have 30 seconds to power down your weapons, or we will be forced to demonstrate exactly why Earth's most successful predators are the ones you never see coming." Vexthorin's scales rippled between colors of confusion and rage. "You dare? We are the Arcturian Empire. We have ruled the stars for a millennium. You are nothing but primitives, ho." His words cut off as one of the human vessels simply shifted. One moment it was 3,000 kilometers away. The next it was passing through his flagship's supposedly impenetrable quantum shields, as if they didn't exist. As it passed through, Vexthorin caught a glimpse of its surface, not smooth as it had appeared at a distance, but covered in mathematical equations and scientific formulas from dozens of disciplines, all merged into something that shouldn't have been possible. 20 seconds. Admiral Chen's voice continued, as calm as ever. "Oh, and High Commander, those mining ships you dismissed. Take a closer look." The primitive human vessels in the asteroid belt suddenly shimmered, their crude forms dissolving to reveal more of the mercury-skinned quantum ships. They had been hiding in plain sight, protected by technology that the Arcturian Empire had deemed impossible. 10 seconds. Vexthorin stared at his fleet's power readings. 0. His weapons, offline. His quantum shields, gone, not destroyed. The humans had simply turned them off. Centuries of Arcturian technological superiority, undone in moments by a species they had laughed at mere days ago. "Time's up," Admiral Chen said, and Vex Thorin could have sworn he heard a smile in her voice. "Would you like to see what else humanity has been hiding?" The Galactic Council's emergency session descended into chaos as the holographic display showed the impossible. The mighty Arcturian protection fleet, pride of the galaxy's most powerful empire, floating powerless in the void. Around them, human vessels moved in patterns that defied both physics and military doctrine. This must be a deception. Counselor Zexel's scales had faded to a sickly gray. Some primitive attempt at psychological warfare. The speaker's multifaceted eyes reflected the holographic display as they watched a human vessel phase through a quantum shield that had been deemed impenetrable. "The data streams are verified, Counselor. Multiple independent sources confirm the humans have achieved something beyond our understanding." In the center of the chamber, a new hologram materialized. Ambassador Elena Santos, her diplomatic robes replaced by a formal Earth Fleet uniform. The quantum particles comprising her image were so perfectly aligned that several council members instinctively checked their reality filters. "Honorable Council," Elena's voice carried the same careful modulation as before, but now it held an edge of authority that commanded attention. "I believe it's time we revised our earlier discussion about trading rights. You dare threaten this council?" A Nemturi representative swirled angrily in their containment sphere. "Our combined fleets will." "This is not a threat," Elena interrupted smoothly. "Merely a demonstration of why classification by apparent technological level is short-sighted." The holographic display expanded, showing multiple views of the human fleet in action. Council military experts watched in growing horror as their most advanced combat algorithms failed to predict the humans' movements. Each ship seemed to operate independently, yet all moved in perfect harmony, like a swarm of bioluminescent creatures creating patterns too complex for even quantum computers to analyze. "Impossible," a senior military advisor whispered. "Their ships are moving through quantum states that our models say cannot exist. The energy requirements alone would." The advisor trailed off as they watched a human vessel split into multiple quantum projections, each one equally real and equally false until the moment of impact. Council defensive algorithms, designed to predict and counter any possible attack vector, failed completely against an enemy that existed in multiple states simultaneously. "Think of it as a dance," Elena suggested, her hologram walking through the tactical display. "Your ships move like marching soldiers, precise, predictable, powerful. Ours move like dancers, fluid, adaptive, and most importantly, creative." Zextel surged to his feet, scales flashing between colors of rage and fear. "What do you want? Why reveal this now?" "Because you gave us no choice," Elena replied. "We came to you openly, offering genuine cooperation. You responded with mockery and restrictions. But humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to adapt and overcome." She paused, allowing a small smile. "Though I must thank you, Counselor. Your dismissal of our silicon quantum hybrid experiments was particularly helpful in maintaining our cover." The chamber erupted in murmurs as the council members began to understand. Every human failure they had mocked, every primitive technology they had dismissed, had been carefully crafted misdirection. While they laughed at humanity's apparent stumbles, they had missed the greater pattern. "Your ships," the speaker observed, their crystalline form vibrating with intense frequencies of curiosity. "They do not follow any known design philosophy." "Because we don't believe in limiting ourselves to a single approach," Elena explained. "Each vessel is a unique combination of multiple scientific disciplines. Quantum physics merged with biology, artificial intelligence woven into organic computing, consciousness itself used as both tool and weapon. While you perfected your existing technology, we questioned the boundaries between technologies." The tactical display showed a human ship seemingly dance through a barrage of energy weapons, its hull rippling with mathematical equations that rewrote local spacetime. The Council's finest weapons didn't miss. They simply couldn't exist in the quantum probability field the human vessel generated. "We tried to warn you," Elena said softly. "When we spoke of combining technologies in new ways, of finding innovation in apparent simplicity. But you were too convinced of your own superiority to listen." Her hologram turned to face Zextol directly. "I believe your exact words were knowing one's place in the order. Perhaps it's time the Council learned its place in the new order." Lieutenant Maya Patel stood at her station aboard the Humanities Dawn, watching the quantum probability fields dance across her neural interface display. The massive dreadnought had just emerged from quantum space near the Arcturian colony of Vexthor Prime, its appearance sending the local defense fleet into disarray. "Analysis complete," she reported. Her consciousness merged with the ship's quantum AI. "Their fleet formation is based on standard Empire doctrine. Predictable to within 99.8%. Admiral Sarah Chen nodded, her own neural interface showing her everything Maya saw and more. "Show me the weak points." Maya's fingers danced through the holographic display, highlighting patterns that only a human mind merged with quantum computing could perceive. They're still thinking in 3 dimensions, using strategies developed for traditional space combat. If we apply the ant colony algorithms. The display shifted, showing a complex web of interconnected attack vectors based on the movement patterns of Earth's insects. The Arcturian formation, designed to counter traditional attacks, would be helpless against an enemy that treated space itself as a superorganism. "Execute pattern 5 anaxi," Sarah commanded. The Humanities Dawn began to move, its quantum crystalline hull splitting into multiple probability states. Around them, the rest of the human fleet emerged from quantum space in a spiraling pattern that mirrored the mathematical sequences found in nature. Each ship's position had been calculated centuries ago, part of a battle plan that had begun taking shape the moment humanity first encountered alien life. "Admiral." Maya's voice held a note of satisfaction, receiving transponder signals from within the colony. "Our sleeper agents are activating." On the planet below, lights began flickering in precise patterns. Quantum communication nodes that had been hidden in plain sight for decades came online, revealing a network that encompassed not just Vexthor Prime, but hundreds of Arcturian worlds. "Begin broadcast," Sarah ordered. Maya initiated the transmission they had prepared. Across the colony, every communication device, from the most advanced quantum arrays to simple entertainment systems, began playing the same message. Not in the formal Arcturian language of the nobility, but in the common tongue of the Empire's countless subjugated species. "To all citizens of the Arcturian Empire," Elena Santos's voice rang out, her words translated perfectly into dozens of languages. "For centuries, you have lived under the myth of Arcturian superiority. Today, that myth ends. But we do not come as conquerors." The holographic displays showed the response. Thousands of ships emerging from hidden docks throughout the colony. Ships that appeared Arcturian on the surface, but had been secretly upgraded with human technology. Ships crewed by those who had suffered under the Empire's arrogance. "Your own defense fleet is standing down," Elena continued. "They have seen the truth we offer. The Arcturian Empire claimed to bring order through submission. We offer something different, growth through cooperation." Maya watched as her quantum probability calculations proved perfect. The Arcturian formation collapsed not through force, but through choice. Ships turned away from their commanders, crews making decisions that centuries of imperial conditioning should have made impossible. "Lieutenant," Sarah's voice drew Maya's attention to a new set of readings. "What do you make of this?" Maya expanded the quantum analysis, her merged consciousness processing the data faster than any traditional computer. "The patterns, they're similar to what we saw in the council session. Other species are watching, Admiral. And they're beginning to question everything they've been told about the natural order of the galaxy." On her display, Maya could see quantum communication signals spreading across the Empire. The web humanity had spent centuries weaving was activating, each strand carrying the truth to those who had been kept ignorant by design. The Arcturian Empire had believed their control absolute, never realizing that their own communication network had been subtly altered to serve another purpose. "Send word to Dr. Chen," Sarah ordered. "Tell him Phase 3 is proceeding ahead of schedule. The quantum resonance cascade is spreading faster than projected." Maya smiled as she relayed the message. The Arcturians had laughed at humanity's primitive communication technology, never questioning why a spacefaring species would choose to use such simple systems. They never considered that humanity's real communication network had been hidden within their own, growing stronger with each dismissive joke about human capabilities. "The galaxy thought they were teaching us our place," Maya murmured, watching the quantum web expand. "They never realized we were teaching them about theirs." The observation dome of the Humanities Dawn curved above Ambassador Elena Santos like a living membrane of quantum crystalline alloy. Beyond it, the gas giant Kepler 186f painted the chamber in shades of deep purple and crimson. The sight would have been breathtaking enough on its own, but Elena's attention was focused on the gathered delegates before her. "The Arcturian Empire told us we were lesser beings," spoke Catal, a crystalline lumini whose faceted body captured and refracted the gas giant's light. "They said our silicon-based biology made us inherently inferior. Yet here we stand, watching human ships use quantum crystalline technology that the Empire claimed was impossible." Elena nodded, remembering how the Council had mocked humanity's attempts to merge silicon and quantum computing. They never guessed that those failed experiments had been cover for collaboration with species like the Lumini. "The Nemturi confined us to our home system," added Ambassador Zix, their gaseous forms swirling with patterns of barely contained anger. "Said our plasma-based technology was too unstable for interstellar travel. Now we see human ships using principles we developed together, proving everything they told us was a lie." Dr. James Chen's hologram flickered to life beside Elena, his presence transmitted instantly through the quantum network humanity had woven through the galaxy. "Every species here represents a different approach to science and technology. The Council races claimed these approaches were incompatible, that their way was the only path to advancement. We proved them wrong." The chamber's displays came alive, showing the fruits of centuries of secret collaboration. Ships that combined Lumini crystalline structures with Nemturi plasma containment. Communication systems that merged quantum entanglement with bioelectric signaling developed by the aquatic Mercon. Each innovation represented a fusion of technologies that the Council had declared impossible. "But why reveal this now?" asked a representative of the Synthoid Collective, their mechanical form humming with computational activity. "Why not continue development in secret?" Elena's neural interface showed her the quantum probability streams flowing through the galaxy. The pattern was clear. The Council's grip on power was unraveling faster than even their most optimistic projections had predicted. "Because the time for hiding is over," she replied. The Council's power was built on keeping species isolated, convinced of their limitations. But humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to see connections others miss, to bring together different perspectives, and create something new. A holographic display shifted to show the growing network of allies. Worlds that had been deemed primitive or unstable were revealing advanced technologies developed in secret partnership with Earth. Trade routes long controlled by the Council were being bypassed by quantum corridors that ignored traditional spacetime limitations. "The Arcturian Empire is already adapting," James added, his hologram walking through a tactical display. "Their younger officers are embracing new ideas, questioning doctrines that have remained unchanged for millennia. Change is cascading through their society faster than anyone predicted." And the Council. Catal's crystalline form vibrated with frequencies of concern. "They still command significant forces." Elena smiled, remembering the look on Zextol's face when he realized the true extent of humanity's deception. The Council's power was based on control of information and technology. Every hour, more of their subject worlds are discovering that the limitations they accepted as natural law were artificial constructs. Their authority is evaporating without a single shot being fired. They called us primitive. Zix's gaseous form swirled with patterns of satisfaction, never realizing that their definition of advancement was itself primitive. Through her neural interface, Alina felt the quantum resonance of ships moving through probability space. Admiral Chen's fleet was expanding the network, each victory bringing more allies into the fold. But these weren't conquests. They were revelations. Species that had been told they were inferior were discovering their true potential. "The galaxy is changing," Alina announced, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of preparation. "The old hierarchies are falling, but what replaces them will not be human dominion. It will be a true collaboration, where every species' unique perspective contributes to the whole." The gathered delegates, representatives of races that had been dismissed, restricted, and marginalized, looked out at the swirling colors of the gas giant. In its complex patterns of light and shadow, they saw a reflection of the new galaxy taking shape, not ordered and rigid, but dynamic and alive with possibility. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of humanity's dawn. Her consciousness merged with both ship and fleet through the quantum neural interface. Around her, the combined fleet of humanity and their allies stretched across multiple probability states, each vessel a unique fusion of technologies the Council had deemed incompatible. "All fleet elements report ready," Lieutenant Maya Patil announced, her own consciousness rippling through the quantum network. "The Lumini crystalline ships have synchronized their lattices. Nem-Turi plasma drives are at full resonance. Mirkan bioships have achieved perfect quantum harmony." Sarah nodded, feeling the fleet's readiness through the neural link. Above the Council's capital world, the last loyalist forces had assembled in a formation that would have been impressive in any previous era of warfare. Now it just looked rigid, predictable, a monument to the old order's inability to adapt. "Open fleet-wide communications," Sarah commanded. The quantum network responded instantly, connecting every ship and crew member in a symphony of consciousness. "All vessels, execute Operation Firefly." The human fleet began to move, each ship following patterns drawn from nature itself. Mirkan bioships flowed like schools of fish, creating quantum eddies that disrupted the Council's formations. Lumini vessels refracted space-time through their crystalline hulls, turning the void itself into a maze of light and possibility. "Council fleet is responding," Maya reported. "They're attempting to deploy standard containment protocols." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Show them why that won't work." The humanity's dawn surged forward, its quantum crystalline hull splitting into multiple probability states. Behind it, the Allied fleet moved in patterns based on everything from electron clouds to murmurations of starlings. Each ship existed in multiple positions simultaneously, making traditional targeting impossible. The Council's fleet opened fire, their energy weapons tracing lethal patterns through space. But the Allied ships moved like dancers in a cosmic ballet, their trajectories guided by both human creativity and quantum mathematics. Where traditional doctrine called for shields, they simply chose probability states where the attacks couldn't exist. "Enemy flagship is attempting to coordinate a response," Maya announced. "Their quantum computers are trying to predict our movement patterns." "Let them try," Sarah replied. "Execute Symphony Protocol." The Allied fleet's movements shifted, now following musical patterns drawn from Earth's greatest composers. Bach's mathematical precision merged with jazz's improvisation, creating attack vectors that no algorithm could predict. The Council's computers, designed to impose order on chaos, faced an enemy that had embraced chaos as a form of order. Through the quantum network, Sarah felt the moment the Council fleet began to break. Their rigid formations, designed to project power through uniformity, crumbled against an enemy that turned diversity into strength. Ships that had never been defeated found themselves helpless against strategies drawn from Earth's history of warfare, from Alexander's cavalry tactics to modern guerrilla operations. "Council flagship is powering up their primary weapon," Maya reported. "Quantum resonance cascade. powerful enough to tear apart normal spacetime. Exactly as predicted. Sarah smiled. All ships, execute Movement 7. The Allied fleet's dance reached its crescendo. Every ship moved in perfect coordination, their paths tracing complex patterns through spacetime. The Council flagship fired its weapon, a beam of pure quantum energy that should have annihilated everything in its path. Instead, the Allied fleet's movement created a living quantum lattice. The Council's weapon didn't miss. It simply couldn't exist within the probability field they had generated. Its energy was caught, channeled, and redirected through the same quantum principles the Council had claimed humanity couldn't understand. Signal from the Council flagship, Maya announced. They're requesting terms. Sarah expanded her neural connection, letting her consciousness touch every ship in the fleet. She felt the pride of the Lumini crews, the fierce joy of the Nemturi, the deep satisfaction of the Mercan. Species that had been told they were inferior now stood triumphant, their unique perspectives combining to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Tell them, Sarah commanded, watching the quantum patterns of victory ripple through space, that humanity and its allies are ready to discuss the terms of a new galactic order, one where advancement isn't measured by dominance, but by innovation, where strength comes not from enforcing limitations, but from embracing possibilities. The Council flagship's response came quickly, too quickly, for their traditional decision-making protocols. Sarah smiled, knowing that even now, their rigid hierarchy was beginning to crack. Change was inevitable. The galaxy was about to learn what humanity had known all along. True power comes not from controlling chaos, but from dancing with it. The Council chamber had changed. Where once quantum crystalline matrices had been arranged to intimidate, they now curved in welcoming spirals. The rigid hierarchical seating had been replaced by a circular arrangement that placed all species on equal level. But the greatest change was in the beings who filled it. Councillor Zextal, his scales now a humble shade of blue, sat beside a Lumini representative whose crystalline form sparkled with frequencies of hope. A Nemturi diplomat swirled in patterns of thoughtful consideration next to a Mercan observer whose bioelectric fields rippled with optimism. And at the center of it all stood Elena Santos, now bearing the title of Earth's first speaker. The final draft of the new Galactic Charter is before us, Elena announced, her voice carrying naturally through the chamber's acoustics rather than being artificially amplified. A document written not by any single species, but through true collaboration. The holographic display showed the Charter's text, written simultaneously in all galactic languages. But more than words, it showed the quantum patterns of agreement already forming between species that had once been bitter enemies. 3 months ago, this chamber echoed with laughter at humanity's supposed primitive nature. Elena continued. Today, we gather not as conquerors and conquered, but as equals ready to forge a new path. Dr. James Chen's hologram appeared beside her, while Admiral Sarah Chen's projection completed the triangle. Through their neural interfaces, they shared a moment of silent satisfaction. The planned centuries in the making had succeeded beyond their most optimistic projections. You could have destroyed us, Zextal spoke, his voice carrying the weight of recent revelation. Your fleet could have torn our worlds apart. Instead, you chose a different path, because destruction was never our goal. Sarah replied, Humanity learned long ago that true victory doesn't come from defeating an enemy, but from transforming them into an ally. James gestured, and the chamber's displays showed the fruits of their new cooperation. Ships that combined Arcturian quantum engineering with human creativity. Medical breakthroughs born from merging Lumini crystalline technology with Earth's biological sciences. Trade routes that used Nemturi plasma physics to create shortcuts through spacetime. The old council believed that progress could only follow a single path, Elena said. That advanced civilizations must think and act in prescribed ways. But look at what we've achieved in just 3 months of true cooperation. The displays shifted to show the changes rippling through society. Former council worlds were experiencing cultural renaissances as artificial restrictions on art and innovation fell away. Species that had been deemed too primitive for advanced technology were making breakthroughs that challenged fundamental assumptions about science. "I have a question." A young Arcturian scientist rose, her scales showing colors of intense curiosity. "Something I've wondered since the day your fleet revealed itself. Why did humanity wait so long? Why spend centuries hiding your true capabilities?" Elena smiled, sharing a knowing look with her cousins. "Because true change cannot be imposed from outside. We needed the galaxy to see for itself the flaws in the old order." Every laugh, every dismissal, every restriction placed on humanity gave us more time to prepare, not for war, but for transformation. And now, the scientist's scales shifted to show genuine wonder. "Now we begin the real work," James replied. "Every species here has unique perspectives, unique approaches to understanding the universe. Imagine what we can achieve when we stop trying to prove who's superior and start learning from each other." Sarah's hologram nodded. The fleet that defeated the Council wasn't just a collection of advanced ships. It was proof that different approaches, different technologies, different ways of thinking can work together to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Elena stepped forward, her gaze taking in the gathered representatives of a galaxy in transformation. The old Council's greatest fear was chaos, the unpredictability that comes from true freedom and diversity. They never understood that chaos isn't our enemy. It's the source of all innovation, all creativity, all progress. She raised her hand, and the chamber's quantum crystalline matrices responded, creating a display of infinite possibility. Countless paths forward, each unique, each valuable. They laughed at humanity because we didn't follow their prescribed path. Now we show them that there are as many paths to advancement as there are stars in the galaxy. The only question is, what shall we discover together? The chamber filled with light as representatives from across the galaxy signaled their agreement. The laughter that had once mocked humanity was replaced by expressions of wonder and hope. A new age was dawning, born not from conquest, but from the simple truth humanity had known all along. The greatest power comes not from enforcing order, but from embracing the infinite possibilities that lie in diversity.